Welcome back to the Freedom Planet playthrough. This is the part where I simultaneously started to like and really dislike Carol. For that to make sense, I have to kind of explain my thought process while I was watching this cutscene. Alright. Oh, suddenly Carol sounds really childish. And then I just wasn't really feeling the voice acting for half of this conversation, but then the final kicker happened. I'm like, oh. And then suddenly Carol's entire personality up to this point in the story made sense to me, and I started to like her.
She's a well-written character, but you're not supposed to like her in this situation, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's a personality fail, but, you know, it's one of those things that's supposed to be a deliberate flaw. But, you know, at the same time, this particular simmering pot of boiling water decided to boil over while they were talking about a friend who might die. So, yeah.
The other thing, though, is that she immediately backpedals on this, though.
Yeah.
And goes to... Which, honestly, like, Trap Hideout's a fun level, but it really does nothing. It's just like, oh, we're going to talk to Spade and get help, and all he really does is say, oh, Lilac's over there.
Yeah,
so
well,
it feels a little unnecessary.
Yeah, I think part of... well, is Trap Hideout first, or does
Trap Hideout is before Thermal Base on Carol's playthrough. It's the next level. Sense.
Yeah, so we have kind of a Deathly Hallows Ron Weasley situation where she runs off and then immediately feels sorry about it and tries to reconnect but can't because the other part of the group has already moved on. Except, well, we can actually see what happened on Carol's end instead of hearing about it later, which makes it marginally more effective, I will say. But I'm surprised. It took us 2 minutes to get through that cutscene and into another level. That's... wow.
It's, you know what, I actually liked that a lot, because that cutscene, I think, did have a lot of merit to it in this level. Something about the way it looks in the music, I think it was very effective having it right after the previous level, because it does feel very solitary.
It feels very solitary. It also feels distinctly not Sonic the Hedgehog. It's like, for this one level, the game decided to be Mega Man X without the wall jump.
You know what? Yeah, it is.
If you're playing as Carol.
Unless you're playing as Carol.
Yeah, because you have to, like, the whole thing is you have to find keys to open these doors, so...
Yeah, it's also a very squarish level, which is something that you don't often see in Sonic levels, like, outside of the occasional odd oil ocean.
Or Marble.
Well, Marble was more...
And Spring Yard Zone.
Let's just say Sonic 1. There's a reason people don't look too highly on that game.
Yeah. You know, I love honestly, visually, this is probably my favorite level in the game, I would have to say.
Yeah, it is very distinctive. I also found the Xbox doors really amusing for some reason.
I also love Syntax's little running commentary. Like, it appears that you were lost. Please don't go into I forget the specific
To open this door,
lines.
stand on the green button. Just kidding.
Yeah, then it attacks you. What a bitch.
Yeah. She, like, Brevon programmed her to be sassy. Like, but only to not anybody but him, because she never sasses him. So, you know, like that crafty bastard.
He's like Orbot and Cubot, only done right.
Well, it's really weird. Is Syntax even a thing of Lord Brevon's?
Yeah, it's like it's just
Syntax is a robot that was apparently built by Lord Brevon, but apparently it's of a certain model that was used by other.
Yeah,
that was used by the Dragon race as well. So
yeah, because there's another robot with the same design and I believe the same voice actress as well.
I think the unspoken implication is that during Brevon's conquests, he got a hold of that specific technology. It would make sense.
It's just it's a minor thing.
Yeah, and you know, it's nice to have an occasional bit of world building detail that you don't necessarily have to have spelled out to you, but it's just there, clear enough that, you know, if you're paying attention, you can get it. You know?
Gotta read between the lines. Also, okay, so, you know, I only just noticed that the live counter cuts off half of Lilac's face because her hairstyle is more important. Okay, game. Whatever.
Isn't that true of Carol, though?
I couldn't.
I don't
remember.
I don't know.
This level's the most, like, not straightforward level in the game. Like, you have to go back and forth a lot in this level.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the main gimmick is finding keys for the door.
But it didn't drag as much as I thought it would, is the thing. Like,
Is at this point in the game that Freedom Planet really starts to depart from being a Sonic fan game? I get the feeling that of the levels that were designed before and after the fan game phase of development, Thermal Base was probably one of the later ones designed.
Well,
where they were getting more experimental with Freedom Planet exclusive characteristics.
Well, generally speaking, in terms of game design, like, you would generally design earlier levels before later levels, with the exception of, like, the very first level or so, because that's usually something that you work on till the end, because the first level's the most important one. So it would...
Also the one that probably needs the most work.
Yeah, because you need to introduce all of the base concepts for the game in that one level.
Well, not even that. I mean, as soon as you finish your last level, you go back to the first level and reapply stuff you may have learned while in the process of creating the other levels.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where it would make sense that as they went on and started introducing new concepts into the game, that the feel of the levels would change. I mean, granted, this could have been the first level they designed. We don't know. We'd have to ask them. This boss fight was random, but I appreciated it, I guess. I don't know. I found it funny.
It's not so much a boss fight as it is the Crash Bandicoot lackeys that push blocks at you, or shields at you. Oh, Jesus Christ!
Considering you just got fucking covered in molten steel.
That only did a little bit of damage. Other hazards like that later in the game will, if not kill you.
Serpentine's gun barrage did more to you.
Hey, come on. I'm a fucking dragon. You saw how Smog tanked that molten gold in The Hobbit?
Oh, that's really adorable. She still thinks she's a dragon.
Rawr, look.
I am the last one. Clearly.
So those platforms with the thrusters on them, like, I would always jump into the thrusters going down at the very top of the jump, because I'm a dumbass.
Yeah, I had that problem too.
Hey, what did that guy do to you, man? Alright.
Took away my best friend.
Speaking of the sense of adventure that this game has, one of the things that I do kind of appreciate about it, though, is like, yeah, it's animal mascot platforming stuff, but the actual environments are all fairly serious environments, which is one of the cases where the game's tone is pretty consistent with itself. What's happening in the dialogue cutscenes might flip-flop between lighthearted and everything, but everything in the gameplay itself is pretty consistently high adventure.
It's also in tone of the story progression, because it'd be pretty damning if you went through that previous cutscene and then suddenly we're traveling on a giant cave.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, the levels, I think this is a better way to say what I was talking about earlier. The levels fit the point of the story that they're supposed to be in. Like, here, this level is very moody and dark, and it fits the point emotionally where you're supposed to be at this point in the game, whereas the early levels are more, lighthearted feeling in the way that they look and also in the way that they play. Whereas this is much more combat focused and you have to try a lot harder, as opposed to it being like a fun romp and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nothing seems to be a certain theme just for a theme's sake.
Yeah, there's no mandatory ice level, for instance. Well, there is an ice level, but there's no ice gimmicks in it, so I don't really think
it's more of a mountain that happens to have snow on it than a snow level.
Yeah, there's no real water level, for example, or at least not that I really remember. Maybe.
Well, there's Jade Creek, but it's more like Aquatic Ruin, where the water is more of a punishment or alternate level design and not necessarily mandatory.
Yeah, the water really isn't a big part of that level, really. Like, you can ignore it almost completely.
This enemy is annoying.
All of the Syntax bosses are annoying, but I still think they're easier than the bosses in Jade Creek. All of them.
Yeah. The bosses in this level don't give me nearly as much shit as the bosses in the other. It's just, the thing that always throws me off is that although you get plenty of warning for the lava coming in, you get none for when it fires it.
Yeah, you see, This is, I think, these bosses, I think, were the ones that really taught me, okay, I actually have to pay attention to the boss's tells. And that was just one of those things where, like, I would have appreciated that before you fight Jade, you know? No, wait, no, not Jade. Nera in Jade Creek, whatever. Like,
Yeah. Nera
yeah,
Creek.
I was thinking of, whatever. You know what I'm talking
Beyond
about.
Good
Like,
and Evil.
because this is the point in the game where it's just like, okay, this guy follows a very, very predictable pattern. So he does a lot of damage if you get hit, but if you memorize the pattern, then you can get through it pretty okay. You know, that
I have no idea how I survived.
Yeah, you had no health. So
I think there's you can get hit one time, grace period, on the health bar, and if you don't get hit for a certain amount of time, it returns to you. I'm not sure.
Epic.
Oh, please!
Actually-
show the doors open.
Of all the running from lava sections that I've played through in a video game, that actually is probably one of the more perilous ones.
It does actually feel like you can get hit, as opposed to where you just run right and you know that you're not going to get hit.
Yeah. I like these sort of hydraulic platform moving animation things. I don't know, something about it just...
It's a pattern that's not in a lot of other games, you know.
Yeah.
There's not very many other... Hello, Scrap Brain Zone. There's not a lot of other platform arrangements in games that move in that weird kind of not circular, not oval, weird pattern, you know.
Yeah. Now, I'm just talking about the machinery that moves the platform, actually. It's something about that mechanical device thing. It really gives the level that extra bit of atmosphere. Does that make sense? Sort of like...
I think I get what you mean. It fits the look of the level a lot, I think.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Oh,
like
when
if
you dink off of the side of the platform, yeah.
Yeah, if you're too high up a slope, you can't drag and dash straight up rule kicks in, and you won't be able to sort of spin dash up it the way you could as Sonic.
It'll think that you're hitting a wall as opposed to a slope, and then you'll just bounce off.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, you don't generally have to do it in too perilous of a situation, so it's not ever going to kill you. It's just like, no, I gotta stop.
Yeah.
There's one thing I wish this game had, though. Well, to my knowledge, it doesn't have, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I wish there was a filter option for the graphics, because there's just one detail that I kind of don't like about Freedom Planet's graphics, is that you can count the pixels on a lot of
yeah, because
sprites.
it's a purely
it's so clean.
it's a purely sharp display. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's personally my preference. I don't like filters over my pixel art, but
So would you
I
want
can
like a CRT filter?
Not necessarily a CRT mode, because I think Sonic Mania had it right, where it had both a CRT mode, a clean mode, which is what I use, and then there's sharp.
Yeah, the clean mode just sort of blurs the pixels together somewhat.
Just
Yeah,
slightly.
I think I can kind of tell what you're talking about, because there's no like specific sprite for Lilac running down a hill. It's just her.
They just kind of rotate
Yeah,
the sprite.
yeah, and that can get a tiny bit jarring because
Yeah, it's the Sonic Advance problem.
Oh yeah, it's not as sharp as that game.
Well, not as
because
bad, but it
it's
can
not
get
just
pretty
the
bad.
sprite that rotates. It's all of the individual pixels that rotate, and that gives the entire sprite a weirdly diagonal look. I should not have gotten hit
Yeah,
there.
unnatural.
Yeah, thankfully in this game you only ever see it for a second, and you're usually moving so fast you don't notice too much.
Yeah.
but-
The thing is, Sonic Mania does the same thing with its sprites, where they rotate, but the pixels are smaller, so you don't notice it as much.
yeah, the characters generally in this are bigger than a general Sonic game.
Yeah, and I don't think Freedom Planet 2 is going to have this issue either, because just going by the demo, even when the camera's not pulled back, and it is pulled back a lot, the sprite work is a lot higher res than it is in this game.
So in Freedom Planet 2, sometimes the camera's closer to the character and farther away?
The camera in Freedom Planet 2 seems to pull back during speed sections, so
Huh.
that you can
Yes,
see
it
further
does.
ahead.
That's
It's
not something...
Which
oh,
is good.
fuck!
Ooh.
That's not something you see in a lot of sprite-based games. Like, that's common in 3D platformer.
I'm sorry,
2D.
unrealistic. The credits should have started rolling immediately after.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in like a 2.5D platformer like Kirby 64 or something like that, you can do whatever the hell you want with the camera. But I've never seen, or at least I don't remember seeing anything like that in a sprite-based game. So that's actually interesting to me.
I think there are some sprite-based games that do it, particularly in the 32-bit era. But
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but that's probably more due to my experience.
The problem is that if you're going to implement something like that, you then have to go through the level and decide where in the level the camera should pull back and
What are you
how
guys
far.
talking about? Best multiplayer game ever. Castlevania Harmony of Despair pulls the camera back, whether you
Fuck
want to or not.
that game! Are we ever going to get around to finishing that?
Probably not.
Later.
Uh,
If we're going to, it'll be online mode only. That way we don't have to deal with the camera issues.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez, I almost died again. The weird thing about that crusher thing is that it only hurts you on its way down. You can walk through it, but you just better not be in its space when it decides to crash down onto the ground. Because if you are, you're dead.
You know, it's just kind of weird, though, now that you're thinking about it, that, like, the camera will pull out for speed sections, because that's something I think people generally want in a lot of 2D Sonic games, is that if you could see farther ahead of you when you're going really fast.
There's a bit of give and take with that kind of thing. The thing is, part of the sense of speed in a Sonic game, or a Sonic-style game, comes from how close the camera is to the character, and therefore how fast the environment that you're seeing around the character is moving in relation to the camera. In other words, the further you... I shouldn't have kicked that. The further you pull the camera back, the slower the environment seems to move.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hello, Mega Man X2.
This boss is actually surprisingly very easy.
Yeah, this
Even
boss
if it-
isn't that bad once you know to stay away from the blinking platforms, because touching them hurts a lot.
Well, it's like everything that this boss that can do to hurt you has a warning light attached to it, so it's not really all that difficult.
Yeah, I don't think the boss itself can hurt you. It's just more of the lava that spews out from his tentacles and the hot platforms.
Yeah, but you can jump off the platforms to avoid damage, too.
Yeah, probably
True,
the
yeah.
most devious attacks that this thing has are the points where there's some sort of spike device that jumps around or rolls around the room, but there's a lot of negative space in this boss arena.
Yeah,
that,
you can lose
Yes.
the boss easily.
I think Carol has an easier time though with it strictly because she can wall jump.
What do you guys think about the warning signs for, like, I mean, granted, I find them very helpful for gameplay, because then you don't, like, get blasted by a projectile that you wouldn't have been able to see coming. But at the same time, they're a little jarring as well.
It depends on which boss, because like I really
It's always a case by case basis, because sometimes you kind of just need it, because say in a 3D game your camera is not always going to be looking at it depending on what the player is doing. So you don't want them to get pot shotted, but
That in a game, in a case where you have a boss this big and a room this huge, you need warning markers.
Yeah,
to give you some sort of
I'm
chance.
talking about this game in particular because in some games, like, just the side of the screen will flash red or something that's a little bit more subtle. And here there's, like, giant street signs flashing on the screen. So I appreciate them because they're necessary for gameplay, but they do stand out a lot, which they're supposed to do, but...
It happened off screen, but there was like this big dramatic build up and then the enemy just sort of fizzled out.
Ah, gambling. Wonderful.
Yes, I have played Gunstar Heroes for God's sakes, guys.
Yeah,
Excellent.
one-ups that we don't need.
Never talk to me or my son again.
You get very few rolls of the die for the bonus game. Like, you use all of the orbs that you found throughout the course of the game. That's Lewis's first bonus game, and he only got 2 rolls.
Remember what happened the last time you messed with a dragon?
are you sure you're a dragon?
You're a dragon?
I want you to be nice and angry for this.
Which is,
Are you getting off to
I
this?
think that line,
Brevon's head clipped through the door.
that line might have been planned for a different kind of scene because it doesn't seem to mesh with Brevon just walking in and hitting you.
Before you decided to throw your life away and interfere with our
Oh, I just noticed that Lilac's hair is already cut off, so I guess it was that hit with the sword that cut it off.
Hey man, that hit does like 4 hearts of damage. All right, it hurts.
But it's kind of gross that they just hang her hair.
Oh, there's blood. There's blood too. Damn.
Yeah, I said that earlier. They hang her hair tails on the rack next to her. It's really dark.
Yeah, this is easily the darkest scene in the game.
It is, and as Lilac is electrocuted, her scales fly off, and there's like this sort of silverish, fleshy stuff underneath. I don't know. It's difficult to tell what it is in pixel form.
I think the point of this scene is probably to showcase that Dawn Bennett would fit right in Dragon Ball, given the set of lungs she has for this particular scream coming up right now.
Oh yeah.
Did you ask her about that when you were doing the Platform Mania run?
If it wasn't me, somebody else probably asked her in a donation comment.
Between my people and put them in danger.
But she's a sweetheart. If there's a Dawn Bennett's the one that voices Lilac the dragon in this game, and if you haven't followed her already on Twitter, please do so. Cause she's a total sweetheart.
Audio balancing issues aside, I really actually do love Lilac's voice acting in general.
Oh no, she is one of the strongest characters in the game. I think voice acting wise, all the main characters I think are pretty good. It's the side characters that are hit and miss.
Yeah, and for as dark as this scene is, I think my favorite part of it is the fact that it gives Brevon a chance to sort of mess with Lilac's head a little, and we don't get a whole lot of
more ways than one.
We don't get a whole lot of development for Brevon, but we do get this story that he apparently feeds people on a regular basis. Where if you hadn't deposed me, I wouldn't have needed to mess with you, which Lilac asks Torque about it later, and he says, "Oh, he said that to you, did he?" Like he's done this before. And when Lilac asks if it's true, he just says he doesn't know. But we can't really trust Brevon not to do bad things anyway.
Yeah, it just it makes sense from his it's him justifying it to himself. But there's no reason for him to blow up, to like electrocute Lilac if she wasn't interfering with his plan. So maybe the Kingdom Stone would have been gone, but maybe Lilac and Carol could have just hid out in their treehouse and then been fine. But then he would have conquered a different planet and whatever, and that's bad. So it's basically him just trying to feed himself something.
Oh, jeez, I didn't actually notice that before. She's got like a bit of like really pixel thin tears going on one of those animation frames. Ugh.
Yeah, the sprite work in this game is super detailed.
Yeah, and it
for better or worse.
In this scene, it's all in service to making the whole situation even more terrifying. I mean, look at Mila's face there. She's just horrified. That's my face right now.
Look at my fucking face. We need to go.
Okay.
Is that how you're supposed to spell coalition? Because I always read it as coalition instead.
Yes, it's coalition.
Yeah, because it just sounds like they're a group of people who really love fossil fuels and who Captain Planet is going to punch in the dick.
And he talks about ensuring his planet's safety. He seems to be that kind of militaristic type who interprets domination with safety.
Yeah, he's more of an effective villain due to presence rather than development, I think, which can work. You don't have to have a super developed villain to. Well,
he's obviously pure evil, even in spite of the lines that seem to hint that he thinks otherwise. But it's it also I don't think it's just a presence thing. I think it can be effective when someone is pure evil but executed well, and I think Brevon hits that mark pretty damn well. The only problem with Brevon is that he really feeds into the problem of the uneven toning of the game, so yeah, a bit of give and take. This scene also got me. Just the voice acting here, I'm sorry, this whole situation just hit me in the gut the first time I played.
Do what you have to do.
And then they give her the magic healing bathtub and everything is right again.
Yeah, I'm glad that they just have one of those lying around.
You're physically fine, but the rest of you isn't.
Any difference, Your Excellency.
Yeah, you know, she's gonna need a lot of therapy. But then again, don't we all?
It would have been a nice detail if she didn't have her tentacles for the rest of the, well, tendrils, I should say, for the rest of the game.
Well, yeah, but then you wouldn't have had the Dragon Cyclone anymore.
She'd find a way. Use her arms.
It's also the most distinctive thing about her character design as well. Like, there's a clear part that's missing when it's chopped off, which I suppose is the point.
I know, sometimes, though, I kind of forget that she has, like, some sort of, like, blue thing sticking out of her head. I always think it's, like, a permanent sweat drop for some fucking reason.
It's a headpiece. In fact, A Hat in Time, like the first official mod that was available for A Hat in Time, was Lilac's headpiece, and it gives you the Dragon Cyclone, which is... wow.
So, I forget why Lilac and Carol are separated at this point of the game, because they find each other and then they're separated again.
They got separated in the escape from Thermal Base, which was sort of blowing up. Lilac washes up on shore and is picked up by Nira before she has a chance to go looking for the others. So, yeah.
Because the game, if you're playing as Carol, cuts straight to Battle Glacier after Thermal Base, if I remember correctly. And we go to whatever the hell the next level's called. I don't remember. As
this is something Lagoon.
Panda.
Yeah. It's this is Lilac's
Rangda Banga.
Yeah.
Rangda Banga. Yes, pretty much.